Hello, and welcome to another episode of Believe TV. My name is Bruce Sampson, and I am your host. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining. I see we already have a few people who are watching. If you've never tuned into the program before, this is an interactive space where we encourage you to comment below to say hello. Let us know where you are and what's on your mind. Feel free to ask questions and all of that. This episode is probably going to be a little shorter than most. It's just me and you, of course. Hello to my friend Karen over in Germany. I can always count on you. So thank you for being here. Hey, my friend Philip as well, uh, over in Australia. I totally almost said New Zealand. Same thing. Anyway, totally kidding. Totally kidding. Um, so yeah, great to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining. Today, let me start with this first. So, more people. Rebecca, Miss Rebecca, hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys for joining. So, um, I want to start with I have some really cool guests that are going to be coming up in the next several weeks. Really informative, really smart people. Um, a couple of them are incredible ladies that I respect a great deal. I'm excited to have them on and have some conversations. And I'm trying to work out another situation with another friend who's no stranger to the program, Mr. Teron Brooks. I want to have him on the program. We're trying to work out a time when it works for his schedule to get him back on the program. I want to really talk about his new single. He has his new song out called Wrong, and it is amazing, and it is inspirational, and it is thought-provoking. And I'm looking forward to having him on the program to talk about that song and the inspiration and all the thoughts around it. So, really cool guests that we have coming up. So, stay tuned in the coming weeks for those. And uh, also wanted to briefly just touch on, and this is going to be a segue into everything, is Martin Luther King. So tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day, the actual federal holiday, which is tomorrow. So um, schools and federal businesses and stuff will be closed and all of that good stuff. Hello, Miss Renita. How are you? Thank you so much for joining. Um, and so we will be acknowledging the incredible life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And his birthday is actually on the 15th, but we celebrated on uh, the closest Monday, however that works out. Anyway, um, yeah. So one of the things I want to talk about first with regard to that is that I am actually in the midst of right now. I'm actually taking a break to do this show because I've been working on a virtual celebration of Dr. King. So here in Washington Parish in Louisiana, where I'm from, we were kind of broken up into the parish is kind of broken up into three general areas, um, and those each of those three areas generally every year has their own Martin Luther King march and celebration and uh, production and that sort of thing. Because of COVID and because of the restrictions, um, they had the different groups decided to come together and to do one virtual presentation. And so I was asked if I would help to pull that together and coordinate that. And so that's going to be happening tomorrow. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to jump right back to editing and all of the stuff to put that program together. And so whether you're from this area or not, I encourage you to tune in and check it out. It's really educational. I have learned so much. You know, I prided myself on my knowledge of civil rights and the civil rights era and history and all of that. But there's a lot of stuff that I learned in the process of trying to put this together, especially about the local folks who took part in the civil rights movement, uh, and realizing that so many of the people that I knew and looked up to for other reasons when I was younger, um, had done some amazing things that paved the way for the freedoms uh, and opportunities that I have enjoyed, you know, in my life. So um, again, really, really looking forward to. Yes, it's going to be. Miss Karen is asking. I guess I should put that on the screen. Is asking, can I see it in Germany? Absolutely, you can. So we're going to do a watch party tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central. I think it's 1 o'clock. I think that's what time it is. 1 o'clock tomorrow, Monday, Central Standard Time. Um, there'll be a watch party on Facebook, but you will be able to also, just watch it anytime you want to. So you don't have to just do the watch party. And I will post a link in here later to all of that. So yes, wherever you are, as long as you can get on Facebook, you're good to go. Okay. And so I encourage you guys to watch it. It's really, like I said, I learned a lot. And so I think other folks will as well. And and just made me think about a lot of stuff, especially given where we are in the world today and how things are transpiring as we speak. So, so just wanted to share that with you. So again, as soon as I'm done with this program, I am going to shut this down and immediately jump back on my computer into editing and recording mode and all of that to make sure that we have it done in time. So, um, so here we are, and the topic today um, is endgame. So what's the endgame? So as I posed it, we're talking about questions and thoughts and hey, it's the evil twin. I'm totally kidding. Middle. Hi, Middle. How are you? Um, good to see you as well. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. So, so the question is, what's the end game? Hey, Mr. Galloway. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. Let's hope I get it done. And Middle's laughing. Um, so, so here's the deal. Um, I've been talking about, over the last several weeks, I keep bringing up the concept of history. And with things that are going on right now, like at some point in the future, people are going to look back at this era and there will be a determination of who was on the right side of history and who was on the wrong side of history, right? Just as we now look at history, we study history in school and everything, and I use the example um, of Hitler, right? And I mean, and you can go down the list: Hitler, Mussolini, any number of folks in any number of eras, and most significantly the civil rights era, or you can even go to the Civil War, what have you. And we can look at things now from a different prism, from a different perspective, and say, well, we look back at it and we say, well, these people are on the wrong side of history, these people are on the right side of history. And it's easy to do from a distance, right? To look at those things and to be able to see it. But when you're in the middle of it, if we really think back and look at it, everybody thought they were on the right side for the most part, right? Now, of course, you always have those individuals and those entities that are basically taking advantage of situations for their own personal gain or for power or for money or prestige, whatever, what have you, right? But for the most part, most folks are just doing the best they can, and they're trying to figure things out as best they can. And in most cases, they think that they're doing the right thing. They're really passionate about the positions that they're taking and, yeah, the stances that they're taking and the actions that they're taking, right, in the moment. But when you're removed 5, 10, 15, 20 years or more from the situation, then we're able to look at that and say, well, those people were totally wrong. How could those people have believed those things? How could those people have done those things? But then if you're able to kind of step back from it and realize in that moment they thought they were right, right? So my good friend Mark Wahlberg, who was on the show last week, we talked about that, and we discussed how people think that they're doing the right thing, and in that moment, one side is looking at the other side and saying, "What's wrong with them? Can't they see we're doing what's best for everyone?" But that's exactly what they're saying on the opposite side. They're looking at you and thinking you're crazy. You should be with us. We're doing the right thing. And that's when it comes back to the whole thing about communication, education and communication. So I'm a firm believer, even though I have my moments, you know, I have my moments where I get frustrated. I have passions. I obviously have my own opinions about things. And I so I look at things through a certain prism, but I have always tried to, or at least in my adulthood, I have tried to educate myself as much as possible and to make sure that I'm not just being driven by my passions, but actually by facts and information that's really backed up. And I am confident that under the circumstances that we're living under right now, and especially in a couple of key areas, that I'm on the right side because I'm following history and science and actual knowledge as opposed to simply passion. So, but history will bear that out to determine whether or not I'm right or not. Uh, but again, there will be people who would argue with stances that I take and say that they're right. But there's a dilemma, right? So how do we deal with these questions? How do we deal with these issues? How do we determine what we're going to do? What actions are we going to take as we move forward? And then step back and ask yourself, what side will I be on the right side of history when all is said and done? And folks are able to look at this from a dispassionate point of view and look at history and look at the facts, and they'll be able to see much more clearly, and the facts will be easily distinguishable at that point, right? Um, that they'll be able to say, okay, well, these people are on the right side of history, these people are on the wrong side of history. Okay, there's that. And then there's just the simple right and wrong of things. So sometimes what we need to be aware of is, and that it's hard, especially when you're in that passionate zone. When you believe in something, you believe some set of information that you've been given or shown or heard or whatever, and you believe that, so you become passionate about it, and sometimes that passion is so strong that you just can't see anything else. You just can't even see anything else. And sometimes that will draw you into a place of doing things you normally wouldn't do and that you would normally view as being wrong. But now suddenly you're in the middle of it and you're like, wait, how did I get here? Right? Because of that passion, because you believed in something. Now, here's the other thing that we need to be aware of is that in this time that we're living in, especially with COVID and restrictions and all those sorts of things, is that those things are having an impact on us psychologically, spiritually, mentally, and we and sociologically. So we have to figure out how to navigate all of that. And so one of the things I thought of, and that's where I got the title for today's episode, is what's the end game? Okay, so yes, I am a comic book and sci-fi adventure nerd, superhero nerd. So yes, I know the Avengers and the Marvel movies and Endgame, but not really talking about that. But at the end of the day, like, what's the end game? So whatever you're doing in life, whatever decisions you're making, ask yourself, what's the end game? Like, what do you expect to happen out of that? Because have you ever been in a situation where you just, again, out of passion or excitement or whatever, you just reacted to something, you just did something? If you could freeze that moment for a second, when you're in the middle of doing whatever that act is, out of passion, out of anger, out of rage or fear or whatever it is, and stop and say, wait a minute, what's the end game? Meaning, what's the end result going to be after this is all said and done, right? What's the end result that's going to happen from this? So let's just go there for a second with what transpired on the 6th at our nation's capital. So the question that I found myself asking for the people who participated in the storming of I almost said the castle, the storming of the Capitol, the question I ask is, what was the end game? Like, what were you thinking was going to be the end result of all of that? So whether you thought it through and you planned it, for those folks who planned it and whatever, or just the ones who got caught up in the moment and they were so passionate and just believed that they were right about whatever, what was the end game? What did you think was going to happen? Like at the after everything was said and done. So, for instance, think about, like, I sometimes, you must look behind and make information before you can say that's okay or wrong. Right, right. So you okay, so here's a scenario. Imagine that imagine there's a kid and he's in a convenience store or whatever, right? And he wants a piece of candy, doesn't have enough money or doesn't have any money. And he goes, no one's looking. I don't think anybody's around. I'm just going to grab this piece of candy and put it in my pocket, and I'm just going to walk out of here. Okay. I would hope that that kid, at least, whatever the intentions were, whatever his heart was, any of that. And I'm going to talk about the right or the wrong of the stealing. But at some point during that process, did you think about what the end game was? What's going to happen at the end of this? Okay. So one possibility is I get away with it. I don't get caught. I get away with it. I walk out. And at some point, when I'm at a safe distance, I enjoy my candy, right? But what if you're wrong? What if that doesn't work out? So now think, what is the end game if I get caught? Okay. So the end game is any number of things. Now, if it had been me as a kid, the end game would have been bad in any number of ways, depending on how I was caught and where I was caught and all of that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, my mind would have always gone to McKinley and Gladys Sampson, my parents, because no matter what would have happened legally, I would have been more concerned about what was going to happen with my parents dealing with me. One, not wanting to disappoint them, right? And realizing I've disappointed them, I have embarrassed our family name, all the stuff. And at that point, you can look back and say, oh man, was that piece of candy worth all of this? The punishment, the again, the pain and embarrassment that I caused my family, the embarrassment to myself, having something on my record, all of those things, like really, what's the end game? So was that candy worth it? Right? And now what? And that's one of those questions I always talk about is like, okay, now what or then what? So when you're making decisions, it's like, okay, you did that thing or you said that thing, then what? Again, what's the end game? So I tried to, as best I can, not rationalize, but at least put in perspective other people's perspectives, right? And how they approach things. So rather than simply saying you're wrong, you're evil, you're whatever, and put you in some sort of bucket, what I try to do is to say, no, you're human and you either made bad choices or you were uninformed or misinformed or what have you. But you're a human being that is flawed like all the rest of us. And the end game for me, at least the end goal for me, is always unity, togetherness, love, uplifting. That's my end game. That's my end goal. And so if the actions I'm taking don't further me and get me closer to that goal, then I have to reassess. And that's the thing that I don't think we always do. And in this current environment where people are stressed out and have been convinced by others that their rights are being taken away or this or that, when folks are just doing the best they can to try to keep us safe and manage this pandemic and all of the fallout that comes from it. So rather than assuming that everything that everyone does is nefarious, especially those who don't agree with us, that it has to be nefarious, it has to be evil, it has to be a conspiracy, it has to be, sometimes it's just folks doing the best they can. And you just hope that along the way that people are trying to figure out the end game as best they can. And I can certainly look back at my life and pull out any number of situations where if I would love to have a do-over, right? To go back and go, oh, I had an argument with someone and I ended up saying something I shouldn't have said, and I can't take that back, and I caused pain I shouldn't have caused. Um, Maybe situations where I took an action or I didn't act where I should have. Any number of things, right? That I can look back and say, oh, I wish I had a do-over on that one. I wish I could have frozen time for a second so I could think about the end game. What's the likely outcome of all of this? Right? That before I said that thing to them that was so hurtful, what was the end game? What did I hope to achieve with that? And was I willing to have that friendship ended just so that I could win an argument? Right? Just because in that moment I was offended, so I have to hurt you back. Well, ooh, Well, now you crossed the line, and where do you go from there? So I'm not really saying this in any way trying to give you a definitive answer other than maybe that's the whole thing. It's just the question that maybe that draws us closer is by being able to ask the question, to be able to slow down enough to ask the question of yourself, right? Miss Rebecca says everyone wants a do-over. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's kind of human nature, right? To that we have those moments that we'd like to get another shot at, that hindsight is 2020. Once you've gone through it, it's like, oh, right. Um, just like we're talking about history, we're talking, mainly talk about in a bigger sense of, which side of history are you on? But it is that whole thing of if we could freeze, like in a movie, freeze it, step out of the frame and talk to yourself and say, wait a second, let's think this through. And so for my friends and acquaintances and and whoever who are out there and thinking about any actions that you're going to take or any feelings about any other individuals in the world, stop and think about, well, what's the end game? So in order for you to win the game, in order for you to win the argument, to win the moment, to get that thing you want, well, what are you willing to sacrifice? At the end, what's the end game? I just keep saying it over and over again. Miss Renita, we have to be mindful of our actions. Yeah, and I'm not even saying that that's easy. It's not. Like I always say, I say often, that I'm a work in progress, right? And that I am grateful that God is a God of second chances, multiple second chances. Um, because yeah, I mess up a lot, and um the other thing I keep going back to the Michael Jackson song, um, Man in the Mirror, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. And as I said before, I think too often we aren't willing to do that, to really take a look at ourselves, take a deep dive and say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm um and I think I keep saying that too because about Tehran's song, it's kind of stuck in my head too about wrong. Um, it is that self-examination, that self-reflection, and given this time that we've had, for those of us who've been, more isolated. I mean, we're all more isolated than we have been in the past. But for those of us who are truly isolated, um, we have opportunities to take advantage of that time to be self-reflective. Um, so we can do that, or we can um, be so upset about our situation that we just need to take it out on someone. Someone's got to be at fault for whatever's happening to me. I don't like this. I didn't bring this on myself. Someone else has to be at fault. Someone has to be blamed for this. And this record says depends on who it is. Would freeze it and yell and then look at it. Um, yeah, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I don't. I'm not saying it's easy at all, but I'm just saying I think it's something that we need to do more of, is truly reflecting, stopping when possible. You know, sometimes it's really hard, but if you've had that moment where you're about to go off and you're about to say something that can really hurt someone, do some kind of damage, that you can freeze that moment and say, don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You know, that I'm going to take these actions, I'm going to break that window. I'm going to, I don't know. I can't even think of things, um, but do something that could be detrimental to others as well as yourself in the long run. But be able to stop and say, well, I want to make sure I'm on the right side of history, because if you look back, if after doing something you regret it and you realize that you caused somebody pain and it wasn't necessary, because after that's over, now what? Now what? I mean, and if it comes down to it, like I'll give you an example. I'm not going to give names or anything, but this is something from my actual life. That there was a person in my life who was pretty close to me, really close to me, and um, yeah, really close to me. And there came a point where I realized just kind of that person was not meaning to, but was becoming rather toxic to my life, was just sending so much negative energy my direction. And didn't really mean to. I didn't think that was their intent. I think that they had all the best of intentions, but I just found that it was just like every time I had a conversation with this person, it was just at the end of it, I was exhausted, and got me to think negatively about people and situations that I normally wouldn't, because that's how they thought. So I was constantly getting fed this negativity, and constantly being fed with this stuff that was actually like like just sapping the energy from me. All the positive energy was just being sapped out. But because we were close and it was a friend, you know, I had these daily ongoing conversations with this person, and but it was doing me damage. And I finally had to say to myself, no, okay, stop, Bruce, stop. And I can either attack that person, I can go after them and tell them what a horrible person they are and what a horrible thing that they're doing to me and all of that stuff. In that situation, I was able to freeze the moment and say to myself, hold on, what's the end game? Because me saying the bad thing to them, treating, saying something bad, is just going to hurt their feelings. It's going to create animosity and weird vibes and all of that. And what I chose to do instead was just to say, you know what? I'm just going to step back and limit my interactions with this person so that I don't get trapped into that vortex and I don't keep going down that rabbit hole where the positive energy is being just sapped out of me. And that was the best thing for me. So I didn't have to hurt them. I had to take another action to arrive at the goal that I wanted. So the end goal was I wanted to be free of the negativity, but I didn't want to hurt the person in the process. And so I was able to reason it through in my mind and to say, look, I'm just going to personally just limit, through my own actions. We didn't even have to have a conversation about it. I just suddenly became less available. Before, I was making myself very available daily to have those destructive conversations. And I finally said, no, there's enough of that. So I stopped making myself so available for those negative conversations. And in the end, it was better for me. I found myself drifting closer and closer to the light because I wasn't allowing myself to be pulled into the darkness. But again, I didn't have to hurt the other person to do it. right? And that's sometimes where I think that we get so drawn into our self-righteousness that we're so right in the situation. Um, I'm not sure what Miss Rebecca is saying. Um, I need more clarification on that. I don't even want to put that on the screen because I'm not really sure what you're saying. If that's a joke, if you're being serious, or what. Um, but anyway, um, sorry. Um, yeah, so that's an actual situation for my life. Um, I would probably benefit from doing that more often, right? Um, and that's probably happened more than once. Now that I think about it, I've probably done that more than once, where I just said, I should just make myself a little less available for that destructive behavior, because I don't really want that. I want the positive stuff. I want to lean into that. That's what I want. Miss Rebecca's laughing at me. Yeah, I don't want to get into mess up your happy home at all. So, um, yeah. So yeah, again, I don't really have any answers for you, and I hope in some way just the discussion and the questions um, may bless some of you in some way. But I just wanted to throw that out. That's just something I've just been thinking about, and I've just been watching a lot of folks, just going at each other about things that if they were perhaps removed into a different space and time, that we'd probably look at it differently. That if we could step back in time a little bit or move farther enough in the future away from this moment of all of our angst and our anxiousness and our anger about this and our frustration over that and just all the stuff about life not being the way we want it to be right now and things not looking the way you think they look and allowing ourselves to be dragged into conspiracies and other thought processes that we probably wouldn't be in another situation, that some of those actions that we're taking and that we're seeing others take are actually things that in another situation they wouldn't do that. They'd be able to look at that for what it is and say, oh, well, that's not good. I don't understand how anybody can look at what happened at our nation's capital and think that was a good thing. Like at all. Unless your end goal is utter destruction and your end goal is to ruin democracy. If your end goal is just to be hateful and destructive, I mean, if that's your end goal, then yeah, I guess that is cool. But I don't understand how anybody could look at that and say that that's good. That you know, and what's really funny and kind of ironic, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Um, that you got folks who months before were probably saying had a particular view about certain actions that then were willing to take those actions when it was something they were passionate about, but had issues about it when it was someone else's passions, right? And we're all guilty of that, right? At some point, just like with politics, like regardless of when it was and when it will be in the future, like there are times when someone you voted for, a representative, a senator, a governor, a president, mayor, whatever, will take an action, but that you will either be for or against based on whether or not you were for or against that person when you voted. So if it's my candidate, if it's my guy that I voted for, I'm probably a lot more lenient and willing to listen to it than I am to if it's not my guy. Does that make sense? So if I voted for the guy or gal and they propose a certain thing, I'm probably much more willing to listen to that and much more in favor of it because, well, that's my guy or gal, than if the someone from the opposing party suggested the same type of thing, right? Then, oh no, then it's bad because I don't like them. I didn't vote for them. So that's not my guy, right? And I mean, I see it all the time. You know, like if you study history and you look at it carefully, you watch, you know, the news and truly know your history and everything. Um, it happens all the time that we switch. I mean, even just look at the Republican and Democratic Party in a large respect. They a couple of times have swapped ideologies, right? I mean, if you really look at it, um, yeah, they've switched places, and so and it happens a lot where one time these people were never in favor of that, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, now we're totally in favor of that. And sometimes it's just a simple fact of the messenger being your guy as opposed to the other person's guy, right? My friend Michael saying if the shoe was on the other foot, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and sometimes we just can't see that. And it's that whole thing of freeze. You step out of the scene for a second, take a look at it, and go, "Ooh, this is not going to be good." There was some there was some game show that was like that. It may still be on. There was some game show that was like that, where they would show you the video of something about to happen, and they freeze it, and then they'd ask, "What do you think is about to happen?" And they give you an A, B, or C. You know, you see somebody running by the pool. Okay, are they going to fall into the pool? A. B. Are they just going to fall on the concrete and hurt themselves? Or C. They slip and then catch their balance and walk away. So it's that kind of thing of being able to freeze in that moment and go, wait, okay, let me step out of it. Let's see. Oh, that just doesn't look like it's going to end well. So let's roll that back and let's stop running in the wet surfaces around the pool. So yeah, let's do that. Um, anyway, I meant to make this short. I didn't mean to go on this long. But thank you all for tuning in and for listening. As I said, next week I'm going to have some guests on, and I've got some guests that we're starting to schedule into next month, and it's going to be super exciting. Hey, there's my friend in Aruba, Mr. Michael Raymond. How are you, sir? Hope you're doing well. Happy New Year to you. Uh, and just remember, I haven't forgotten. You said you're going to bring Believe to Aruba. So, uh, again, let's see. Miss Karen says it's every time one loses and one wins, you must accept it. Um, yeah, I mean, well, I don't completely agree with that. I mean, yes, you generally speaking, at least here in America, we accept and um, peaceful transitions of power and all that stuff, right? Dating back to George Washington establishing that trend, which we've always found to be honorable um, all this time. So anyway, didn't really want to get into to all that stuff, but I think it's helpful for us to stop sometimes, freeze it before we do the destructive behavior, before we say this is something truly destructive, before we even buy into someone else's negativity that they're putting towards us, that in a normal situation we wouldn't even follow, that we're able um, to move on. Sorry, Mr. Michael Raymond is saying, Bruce Sampson, are you going to take the vaccine? Oh, as soon as it's available, I absolutely am. Yes, absolutely. Um, Yeah, I'm not eligible to take it yet. It's not available to me yet. But as soon as it is, I will be happy to take the vaccine. Um, and I hope that others will as well, to get us closer to a point of uh, going back to some type of normality, some normalcy. Um, I don't think that'll stop me. Me taking the vaccine won't stop me from wearing a mask and taking those precautions until such time as Dr. Fauci and others say that that's the case. Thanks for expanding on it. Oh, yeah. Sorry. That I tend to do that. I tend to just keep going with the thought. Um, so yeah, I plan on taking it. I trust the science. I trust Dr. Fauci. He's vouching for it, and any number of scientists and medical experts in the field of, was it virology? Is that how it's pronounced? Viruses and that sort of thing. Um, yeah, I will definitely be taking it, and I will even add on to it, just to kind of make you go scratch your head a little bit. I generally don't take uh, flu vaccinations, and the reason is it's it may be totally stupid, but I used to take them all the time, and then there came a point where whenever I took them, that's when I get sick. And I wasn't getting. I'd be fine, 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 fine. Take a flu vaccination, and then I would get the flu. And I'm like, okay, hold up. And so, and I'm not advising that for anyone else. I'm just saying for me, I stopped taking it because it just so happens I kept getting sick every time I had it. And I don't know if I was taking the wrong one or what the deal was. But anyway, um, and so I know people that know that about me said, "Oh, well, then you're probably not taking this vaccine." I'm like, "Oh no, heck yeah, I am, as soon as possible." And I take the flu vaccine if that wasn't making me sick. I just generally don't get the flu unless I take unless I take that flu vaccination. But I am definitely taking the COVID for sure. Um, oh, yeah. There's a civil rights movie, Deacons for Defense, with Forrest Whitaker. It's about Bogalusa. Absolutely, because that was a real thing. And actually, if you were actually that will be a portion of our Martin Luther King program that we're going to be streaming tomorrow. So if you want to tune in for that, yeah, it'd be great. And again, this is going to be my last thing, and then I'm gonna get out of here because I gotta go finish editing. Um, as it pertains to Martin Luther King, and I've said this before, that I am looking forward to the day when everyone looks at Martin Luther King as an American Martin Luther King Day as an American holiday. And they look at Martin Luther King as an American hero, not a hero for the blacks, a holiday for black folks. He was an American hero because what he fought for was driving us closer to that American ideal, that we're all created equal, that we are endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights, life, chief among those being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So, uh, absolutely, absolutely, I encourage you to educate yourself about Dr. King and about the civil rights movement. And I think there's probably no better time in history than right now for us to reacquaint ourselves with those ideas and philosophies and concepts. And yeah, so that's that. But it should be an American holiday. It should, well, I mean, it should be a universal holiday. But in terms of America speaking, um, I think there are a lot of people who look at it as, oh, that's a black person's holiday. It's like, no, it's not. It's an American holiday. It's for all of us. So, and Dr. King was for all of us. And what he fought for was to create a better America. So, yeah, doesn't matter what color his skin was, you know. Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again. I will see you all next week, if not before. And I wish you all the best.